relationship with your group is about to change a little bit. So how many people have called me in the room? A couple, handful of people? I get a lot of calls from people in the field, so people I'm presuming that are working under you, and we really appreciate that. In the past, we could give you education, so I could help you understand what options we have to choose from, but we couldn't tell you what you should invest in, right? And I think I've probably said that as we've gone through the presentation. Going forward with the new relationship that we have, my entire team can give you advice, right? So there's a number of things that change about the old plan compared to the new plan. What's not changing is the phone number that you call and get information on, my number or the census number. Your statements will look the same. The website's the same, your passwords are the same. But what is changing is we're taking the old funds that you had and we're converting them to a different share class. I'm gonna explain what that means and how it's better for you. That's the first thing. So I have a different share class, it's cheaper. The second thing that's really important is in the past when you called us, again, I couldn't give you advice. I still can't move your money. So if we talk about something, you say, yeah, I like that idea, move it from XYZ to ABC. I can't do that. You still have to move your own money. But today I can say, okay, tell me a little bit about yourself and I can tell you which specific funds we think are best for you. You with me? Okay, so two important changes. Things get a little cheaper. I have all the same functionality and I've got some new tools for you as well. And then you can call me or you can call any member of our team. I'm gonna show you them in a minute, just in case you're not comfortable with me, and we can give you direct advice. Any questions on that? Ready to do all that in about half an hour? Sure. Excited about that half an hour after the 2-hour statement. I'm gonna pass up a couple slides here real quick. I love my part of my job, so I get to come out and interact with you guys. The rest of my team does not. But I'm gonna show you the rest of my team just so that you get a level of comfort with them. So I'll introduce you to the full team behind me. I'm gonna go through some back to basic stuff. Has everybody done the sign up sheet?
No.
Who needs this? Right there? Right behind you?
Oh,
I'm gonna do some back to basics, so we're gonna talk about some things that I talk about every time I come out here. We'll talk about that plan conversion. There's gonna be about 3 days that's gonna impact you at the start, so we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the new MDM plan in the year ahead. How many people are nervous about the economy? All the crap you hear. I don't care if it's politics or overseas. I get a little nervous too, right? Here's what I tell you, if you stand back and listen to, there's people in my business that get paid to do nothing other than try to understand what's going on in the economy and guess where it's going, right? So they're analysts, they don't have clients, they don't come up and do this. All they do is look at data. Our best guess right now is our economy continues to crawl forward until about the end of 2019 or beginning of 2020. Right? So when you leave here today and you ask, how's Chad feeling, what are you gonna say?
nervous.
Yeah, a little bit, but here's how I'd say it. I'd say cautiously optimistic, right? There's a lot of bad stuff that's going on. I started out, for some of you that weren't here, there's not one business that I go into where they're not struggling to hire people. We don't have a bunch of people that are walking by and looking to fill out applications. That's changed. So it's becoming painful for most businesses. I don't care if you're a grocery store, doctor's office, or MDM. So for all of us, it's getting really difficult to not only find employees, but then to find quality ones, right? Anybody guess what the average age of an over-the-road truck driver is today? Just guess.
40.
57. 57. So I mean, the scary thing is, I'm not 57, but I'm already having a tough time checking some of those blind spots, right? Changing lanes and stuff. These guys driving really big trucks, guys and gals driving really big trucks. So what's happening in our workforce is we're all aging. And we're not finding ways to replace those. That's the first pain point, right? What's happening to interest rates? They're starting to come up, and that's affecting the investments that you guys have. So we're gonna talk about that today. It's also affecting debt that you have at home. Hopefully when you buy a house, you have a fixed interest rate mortgage. But then some people have student loans, some people have credit card debt, some people have home equity lines, and those are variable. So what's happened to those interest rates? They've started to go up, right? And I don't think they're done. I think they're gonna keep going up. So it's one of the things I'd say that you could take home with you. You wanna pay down that variable debt, because that's the debt that over the next couple of years probably is gonna have a little bit of a bite. The last thing that started to creep up on us over the last year or so is fuel prices. So if you're a business owner, I've got 3 things that are starting to work against me, and the longer the economy is successful, the more those things are gonna work against me. Okay, we'll talk about that a little bit more. That's my ambitious plan for today. Behind me, so you get to see my ugly mug at least once a year. I hired Angela, I think about 18 years ago, and she's been with me ever since. She's phenomenal. She's got an accounting background. Hired Michael probably about 4 years ago. Heather's been with me for 21 years. And then Leslie's been with me for probably, 6 years now. So I've got a great team. Leslie's the only one out of the team that's not licensed, so she can't answer your investment questions, but everybody else can. So if you can't get me, if you want an immediate answer, try any one of the other three. But that's the whole team behind me today. How many people, so a couple of you are calling me, how many people are going online on the website? How hard is that?
No, it's very easy.
Very easy. Anybody else that has had trouble with it? You've had trouble with it. How have you wrestled with it?
Never open it. I tried my password, doesn't go through.
Okay. Hey, so there's a problem that I sometimes hear if we've got your date of hire wrong, when you go to set it up, it won't let you set it up, right?
Yeah.
So you'll have that kind of stuff. Here's what I want you to do. If you're having troubles with that, I want you to call this number. And you don't have to write it down because it's on every statement that you get from us, otherwise I'll keep it here so you can write it down. But if you call that number, and if you just sit on there, it thinks you have a rotary phone, and you get a live person. And tell that live person, look, I'm having a lot of trouble signing on, and they'll walk through your data. They won't tell you what it is, because they don't know if you're really you, but they'll ask you for your birthday, and they'll compare it with what they have on the screen. They'll ask you for a social security number. They'll ask you for a hire date. They'll walk you through to try to figure out, is all your data right? If you say a number that isn't what they're looking at, they don't tell you what the right one is, but then we know we have to go back to Shell or somebody in HR and then get that number corrected, okay? I suspect in most cases that's not it. It's just a matter of losing or misplacing the password.
It's when your position changes, so it's your last date from when you were like transferred from DSP to LEAP.
Hey, would you say that loud? I've never heard that before.
It would be the start date, your start date changes when you move positions.
Does that happen?
It did.
Really? Okay. That's great information. I didn't know that. So I'm gonna just say it a little bit louder. So when I switch from one position at NDM to another one, it could affect my data hire?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So then if that doesn't match, then that would be if I call in and my data hire wasn't right, then I think I would take her advice and probably give them the date that I changed positions, and see if that works. But by the way, for all of these things, if you're not able to get on the system and you're not able to get a solution through them, who do you call next?
Chad.
Yeah, please call me. Because if I have to get on the phone with a census with you, I'll do it. Or one of the team members will do it. I want you to get on there. And the interesting thing is you guys get, how many, raise your hand really high if you get statements. Okay, by the way, all of you get statements. Okay, wait a minute, keep your arms up. Be honest. Keep your arm up if you open that statement and review it. Okay, so I got great news. You're all normal, right? Except for the ones that kept their hands up. Because most of us are not looking at the statement, right? Now, if what you're saying is, look, I look at that statement, it's already 3 weeks old. Okay, then I give, because if I look online, or if I go to the phone system, I can get information from yesterday. I don't have to wait for the statement, right? But I wanna make sure that you're getting the statement. If you wanna get online, you're able to do that. And if you're having trouble doing that, please call me, I'll help you get online. And the phone system works well as well, okay? Okay, a little bit of housekeeping here. Has anybody had a baby, got married, or got divorced? I got married a month ago today. She stuck around for a whole month. Okay, so anybody else get married, get divorced, have kids? Okay, so then most of you then probably don't need to go in and change this, but I'm begging you, my first piece of homework for everybody in the room is I want you to have a primary beneficiary and I want you to have a contingent beneficiary. What's a beneficiary?
People who get the money when you're dead.
Plan A. She's absolutely right.
I know.
Why is that funny? Plan A, I spend it. I work really hard to save for my retirement, and then I retire, and I spend my money. That's plan A. What's plan B? B for beneficiary. I work really hard, I save a bunch of money, and I don't retire. For whatever reason, I die, something happens to me, right? Who gets my money? That's what a beneficiary is. So I wanna make sure that you have a primary. If you're in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa, your primary is supposed to be your spouse. If it's not, that person would need to sign off on something saying it's okay to have your, are you married?
Not yet.
Not yet, are you married? Yep, so if she wants her boyfriend on, she's gotta get her husband to sign off on it.
Why, excuse me, why does it have to be your spouse? What if I don't
Yeah.
want him to be?
Yeah, it's a great question. It doesn't have to be your spouse. But multiple states have adopted language to say that you can't not have it your spouse unless that person knows about it. I'm gonna pick on guys, right? Because I'm pretty sure guys are what caused this problem. What happens is a man and woman are married, guy finds a trophy girlfriend, starts messing around there, takes money out of the retirement plan, spends it on the trophy girlfriend. When there's a divorce, there's no money left to split. And so a lot of judicial systems in different states have said, okay, that's not fair. So if you're going to have somebody else other than your spouse on there, that person needs to know that they're not the main beneficiary. So I'll put myself in the limit. My new wife, as of a month, will not be my only primary beneficiary. So I'm gonna have to get her to sign something that says it's okay that my kids from a different marriage are gonna get part of that. We've talked about that, so it'll be okay. But if I'm gonna have a primary and I'm married, it needs to be the spouse in Minnesota. So if I'm not ethical, and I sign my spouse's name, or I just ignore it and I don't update it, you're not okay, because then that person and their family could challenge that you've not done your beneficiaries right? So here's the golden rule. Be honest, make sure you stay on top of your primary beneficiary. If you don't want it to be the spouse, great, that person just needs to sign off on it, okay? Somebody had a question.
Yeah, my question was, beneficiary, you talk about spouse.
Yep.
Do they have to be a spouse or,
It's a great question. So, are you married?
no?
So you don't have to have a spouse, you can have a partner or a friend. Most attorneys would say, don't do that, if it's not a spouse to have.
Suppose I'm married.
Yep,
Okay, let's say I'm married. Then what happens?
if you're married and you don't want your spouse to be your beneficiary,
Sure enough, I don't want.
then he or she will have to sign off on that you have somebody else there. There's an actual piece of paper that you fill out for that.
So there, your spouse has, anything, he has something to do with your 401k?
He has nothing to do with it
Okay, but
unless you pass.
unless you pass.
Yep, and then he'd be a beneficiary. So it's a good question. So just because I'm a beneficiary, I have no control over this person's 401k. I can't make any decisions, I can't take any money out, I can't even get information on it. It's your 401k, but if something happens to you, your beneficiary's gonna get it. Right? So if I'm married, my primary should be my spouse. If I'm not married, maybe my kids, my siblings, my parents. Even if I'm married and my spouse is my primary, I'm begging you, I want you to have contingents, right? Is your husband a nice guy?
Yes.
Is he a good driver? No. Do you ride in the car with them?
I do.
So it's conceivable that they both have a tragic car accident, right? So I don't know if you have kids or not, but is it important that she has a contingent?
Yes.
Yeah, because her and her primary could go in the same instant. I hope, pray that never happens. But if it does, I want her to have that contingent. I don't want you to stop here, right? So if I'm not married, up until a month ago, I was not married, my kids are my primary beneficiaries. So if I got 3 kids that live in different areas, chances of us all getting hurt at the same time is probably small. But we sleep in the same house on Christmas, Thanksgiving, so I mean, it's still conceivable, right? Okay, so first piece of homework, I want you to have a primary and I want you to have a contingent. If you're working through this and you just don't know what to do, again, call me and I'll walk you through that, right? Or one of my partners will. Are you getting the full match? Got a great match here at MDM Rubicon? I want you to get that full match, right? So can you add 1% to your current deferral? Whose job is it gonna be to get me to retirement?
You're out of line.
Yeah, how do we feel about Social Security? Kind of scary, right? I very politely disagree with you. It's gonna go bankrupt, and that's what the politicians tell us. But we miss out to what that means, right? So if you have $1,000 come in your checkbook, and you have $1,500 of bills, that's not gonna work, right?
Right.
But you still have $1,000. So that means you'll be able to pay a couple bills. That's how Social Security is gonna fall apart. When Social Security falls apart in the year 30 something, they don't have enough money coming in to pay everybody. And by the way, we know what they have coming in. It's about 72%. So they'll have some to pay you, it's just not enough. Which makes the 401k, what we're talking about today, it makes it really important. right? But I would challenge you, I think you will get social security, I think my kids will get social security. The problem is, I don't know when they'll get it, what age they'll be, I think they're gonna be in their 70s, and I don't know how much they're gonna get. But I'm sure it's not as much as my grandfather got, it's not as much as my dad, won't be as much as me. So it'll be even increasingly more important that they're listening and that they're coming to these and doing this, right? That's what I want you guys to do. I'm gonna pass the Roth asset allocation. How many people are using the goal manager model? The model that picks it for you? You pick conservative, moderate, aggressive?
I think so.
Yeah, almost all of you are using it, right? So we have that tool still sitting there. We're gonna give you one more that has to do with your retirement year. It's gonna take care of one more thing for you, so bear with me for a minute. So we talked about primary beneficiaries. Everybody knows what the contingent is, right? Primary, first person. If the first person, the primary, and I are both dead, it goes to those contingents. Okay, could you write down a couple things for me? On August 30th, we're gonna change funds. Now, I've got a handout here, I'm gonna go through that with you in a minute. On August 30th, 8:30, we're gonna change the current lineup to one that in most cases is cheaper. It's going to an institutional class share. I'll explain more about that in just a minute. On August 30th, at the close of business, you'll still be able to go on and look at it on August 30th. The plan is gonna shut down just for a couple days. I believe that's a Thursday. On August 31st, if you go online, we got a pen?
I'm looking for an extra.
Okay. We'll do share. I might have an extra.
I got one.
You got one? Okay, so on August 30th, at the close of business, end of the day, the plan freezes. It means you can't change anything. On August 31st, I believe that's a Friday, you're gonna be able to wake up, and what they're telling me is you'll be able to see your balance, but you won't be able to change anything. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you just conservatively, I think you're frozen out of it, right? And the last time we did this, that period of time lasted almost a month. We're trying to get this done over the course of a weekend and a couple business days. So, end of Thursday, it freezes. All day Friday, you can see it. And we go live, and I'm sorry, the funds actually change on the September 3rd, and you go live, meaning you get all the functionality back. You can change it to whatever you want on the 4th. So I think you're actually going to be kind of locked out Friday and Monday, and over the course of the weekend, right? Weekends, not business days anyway. Does that make sense? I'll explain to you what's gonna happen in just a minute, but I want you to get the timeline down. So end of day, August 30th to the morning of September 4th. There's a weekend in the middle. I think you're not gonna be able to move things around. Right, take money out, change investments, any of that stuff. Any questions on that? I'll explain to you what's gonna happen in just a minute. No questions? I'm gonna come back to that. Would you take out the sheet for me? So it's got mapped from on the top right here. When the videotape gets spread out for everybody, I think we want to make sure we get handouts out to them at the same time, or emailed to them. So if you look at this far left column, this is kind of, it's in a different place than I normally show it to you, but all we're trying to do is tell you what's going on inside of that investment. What is the person doing with your money? Right, so let me pick out a couple. If you're investing in number 6, where's your money going? Number 6, what's that telling you?
World.
You're sitting in 3rd grade, over in the corner of the classroom, there's this round thing, bunch of colors on it, what is it?
The
The globe, right?
The wall.
If I'm investing my money in the world, it's all over the place, different things, right? What if I'm in large growth? What size company?
Big one.
Huge, right? Good large growth would be Microsoft, Oracle, right? Some of the big pharmaceutical companies. So it's gonna be all US, but it's gonna be in the growth side. How about small growth? All US, small companies, right? And then we got the international. Remember, every time I come out here, I say the top one is the safest one, and the bottom ones are the most risky, right? So you're gonna get a new bottom one. Number 17 you've never had before. Number 17 is the most risky one that you have in your lineup. Emerging markets, what does that sound like?
Combination.
Emerging markets is those countries that haven't got the standard of living that we have. So I'll name off a couple. India's a bad example today, because they've got some pretty established places, but maybe Pakistan, South Korea, parts of Latin America, old Russia. What's the problem with those countries? Not bad people, what's the problem with the country?
More risky.
Huge risky, unstable political systems, right? Their own economies are not stable, their currencies are not stable. It's not that people are bad. The challenge is if you're in China right now, there's a major part of their population that doesn't have refrigerators. So if you and I could invent a refrigerator that we could get to China, that the vast majority of the population could buy, that'd be a huge growth, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be nice to have a refrigerator? Yeah. So if you're an emerging market, there's huge potential there, but a lot of risk. So where's it on our list? Right at the bottom, right? Most risky one. So you've never had that to choose from. So here's all the funds that you have today, or you might be in one of these models. We're automatically gonna transition those funds to the funds that are on the right. Now, let me explain a couple things to you. If you look at number 4, you've got the Pioneer Strategic Income Fund. See this little R there? That's a class R for retirement. In my world, when you're making investments, the size investor you are determines how much you pay in fees, right? So what would you think MDM is a relatively small company compared to others? How about Walmart? Huge. Waste Management, garbage company? Coca-Cola?
Huge.
When those companies have a 401k, Walmart's, by the way, is the largest on the face of the earth in terms of number of people inside of it, not dollars, people. DuPont, I think, is the biggest in terms of dollars. When those companies start a 401k plan, they demand something that we call an iShare, right? And it actually has different R6 or different things, but it doesn't have this R here. And so if you look at number 4, the Pioneer Strategic Income Fund is the same exact fund as the Pioneer Strategic Income Fund that we're moving you to, but there's a difference. The K-share is cheaper than the R-share. Right? So the larger plans pay less, they have more dollars. Larger plans pay less than the smaller plans. Right? Merrill Lynch from top to bottom, if you have your plan at Merrill Lynch, all plans are moving to the institutional pricing. So everybody will pay less on their mutual funds. And some of the costs that were buried inside here will now be shown to you on your statement, and you'll see them pop up alongside of the fund cost. So the net difference will be a small reduction for everybody. So it's not a huge price cut, but it's the best that we could do. But it's gonna give you the cheaper funds. And in some cases, we have to change them. Not all fund companies are willing to let us do that. So let me give you an example. If you take the John Hancock Balanced, some of these will not allow us to go to an iShare, so we're changing that from the John Hancock Balance to the BlackRock Global Allocation Fund. I'll give you another example. Maine State will change to the American Beacon Fund. Federated Kaufman Small Cap will change to Janus Henderson. What do you have to do to make this transition? As a participant, for your own account, what do you need to do?
Nothing?
Absolutely nothing. Okay. The reason we ask to come out and do this before the change happens, when's that change happening? Starts on?
August 30th,
on-
end of business day.
Thank you. So the reason we want to come out before that is because if you don't like how this is transitioning, if you don't want to go over to the other fund, you can change, you can impact that, right? What do?
Call you.
You could call me, but I can't move your money, but I can help you understand what to do. So that's
Go online.
Go online, because I could change, if I'm in the Putnam Global Resources, I could change to any one of these other funds and impact where we're gonna put it, right? I don't have to follow this. If you like what we're doing with it, what do you have to do? Absolutely nothing, right? What if you're in one of these? Which most of you are. You don't have to do anything at all, right? Eventually, we're gonna move to this model, and I'll explain that to you in just 1 minute. But right now, if you're in one of these models, we'll make all the changes for you. Okay, any questions on that? So you've got the timing down, you know when you need to do that, or when it's gonna happen, not when you need to do anything. You know when the change is gonna happen, and now I've given you exactly the changes that we're gonna make, right? Why are we making these changes? Yep, cheaper for the participant. What else does the participant get? you used to get education, tomorrow you'll get advice, right? So I could call Chad and his team, and I could ask him, okay, for me, which fund should I do? Which goal manager should I do? And I can answer that question. I don't have to back into an education conversation, right? There's one more advantage that you don't see. Shell and Diane and their leadership team have to sit down and look at this plan periodically. And in the past, I couldn't give them advice either, give them education. Going forward, I can give them advice as well, and I share the same risk that they share with the plan. You share risk. That's the big three changes. Everybody okay with this?
Yeah, question.
Yep.
I was looking at, the emerging markets.
Yes.
So I can go online, right? And can I move my money anytime, like if I wanna put some in the emerging markets? And maybe it's doing well for maybe a few weeks, and after that, I can move it to where I want. Can I do that?
Yeah, so let me give you a more complicated answer. The short answer is yes. So the government doesn't want, not Merrill, but the government doesn't want us day trading our mutual funds. So if I'm rapidly buying and selling them, I'm gonna incur a penalty for jumping out of it too soon. So here's what's gonna happen. When you go to buy the emerging market fund, this new one, American New World, a pop-up box is gonna come up, and I don't know, it's gonna say 7 days or 14 days or 21 days. If you sell this fund within that period, they're gonna charge you 2%. That's the government trying to keep you from jumping in and out of things. So can you do it? Yes. There may be time periods where you don't want to. But, so let me expand on that. What if I did emerging markets for a year, and then I start, it doesn't, things overseas don't look good. I start to get a little nervous. Could I move out of that, based on my answer?
Yes, you can.
Absolutely. As long as it's a business day, before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. How much is it gonna cost me to move out? Not if, nope.
Not if I stay within the.
If I go outside of that, if I own it for a longer time, right? I just, when you see that,
There's a waiting period.
yeah,
You don't want to jump.
a waiting period's a good title for it. It's a waiting period to get you to hold that for a longer period of time. They don't want you rapidly selling it.
Okay.
I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't tell you what's coming, but I do agree with if I'm investing in something that has a lot of risk, it's really located in one part or multiple parts that are similar in the world, then there may come a time, if internationally speaking, things are not going well, where I say I don't want exposure there, right? If North Korea drops the ball and says, okay, we changed our mind, we're going back into the nuclear thing, I don't know that I'd want a lot of exposure to one of the most risky international. Russia. Yeah, but it's gonna, I don't know that you lose all of it, but that's where your biggest hits are gonna come, right? Okay, so we see the transition. Before we go any further, let's go to the next page. So I think I recognize almost everybody's face, which makes me feel good, because that means you came back even after hearing me the first time. Come on, a little laugh. So, where's my safest fund on this list? You've heard me talk
At the
multiple
top.
times.
The
The
top.
top one, right? And the bottom one is this new emerging markets that you haven't had. By the way, if I want to move into the emerging markets, what's the first day I can do that?
September 4th.
Thank you. Don't miss anything. Okay, so as I go down this list, what's happening to my risk?
It's increasing.
It's increasing, right? Then help me understand what's going wrong here. If you look at this list, and my performance is kind of sitting in the middle. Okay, so maybe it makes sense that I'm losing some at the bottom, but why am I losing money at the top? Right? So let's go back, and here's that investment objective. So I'm sorry, who's?
No, I was just reading the.
Yep. Okay, so investment objective, stable value, it's my savings account, right? It's like cash. By the way, is this helping me get to retirement? Not very much, right? Inflation, I'm falling backwards. Okay, so then I've got the BlackRock inflation protected bond. So this is inflation adjusted, so that should do well over time as we get inflation. What's inflation? Yeah, so I'll give you a really stupid example. In 1970, if you bought a postage stamp, it cost 11 cents. Fast forward 30 years, 1970 to the year 2000, what would that same postage stamp cost? I love this example because it's a perfect triple, 33 cents. So you went from 11 cents to 33. I know today we do web bill pay and stuff, But that's about a simple commodity, right? You think about milk, you think about gasoline. Stamps are pretty simple. Everybody was using stamps, and it tripled. If you retired in the year 1970 and were fortunate to live at least 30 years, your savings had to keep growing. It's kind of scary. That's inflation. What did things cost you 10 years ago, last year? Things going up in value, or things going up in cost, is that inflation? So if I look at inflation-adjusted bonds, government bonds, multi-sector bonds, this intermediate is a bond, and that world allocation actually has bonds inside of it. I'll come back to that. It's 40% bond. But if I look at all of these, what's happening to my bond funds?
They lost some money.
The bond funds are going down, so it's really frustrating because those are my safe funds. So here's what I want you to remember, because I think it's going to continue. If you own bonds, as interest rates go up, the bonds that I own have trouble. They go down in value temporarily. They'll come back, but you have to wait. And the losses won't be as big as when the stock market's falling, but it's still going to be irritating because that's my safe money. So if you own bonds, and those of you that are in the Gold Manager, you do because we think it's the right thing to do. It's a terrible thing to compare back to, but think about 9/11. So about 4 or 5 days, the market doesn't even open because New York is in rubble. And then the market opened. What happened? The stock market got crushed. People took their money out. These were the safe things. These are the things where people wanted to put their money. Everybody went to where they thought was safe money. It's actually treasury bills is what everybody wanted to go to. But these reversed themselves immediately. Stopped on a dime and started going down. So the reason I own bonds is for two reasons today. Inflation, interest rates will work against me. They're gonna keep going up, so I don't own bonds because of interest rates. They're gonna hurt me. But I do own bonds because I wanna reduce the volatility. If something really bad happens, North Korea, Russia, Trump does something stupid, you fill in the blank. If any one of those bad things happen, my safe things are gonna be where I have decent performance. The last reason I own bonds is for income, right? None of us are retired, so we really don't need the income. But keep in mind, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know how long the economy stays good, or I don't know when something really bad's gonna happen. But when it does, these are gonna be my best performers. That's why I still own bonds. Does that make sense? It's frustrating because if you're trying, okay, wait a minute. If this is my safest, and this is my next safest, then why am I losing money there? I should be losing money at the riskier ones,
Right.
which today we are right now too because of international stuff. We'll get to that in just a minute. Okay, until the end of 2019, maybe beginning of 2020, I think most of the value is gonna come right here. In the middle of this list is the stock market, but more importantly, it's the US stock market. What's going wrong overseas? Well, caught me off guard, I wasn't ready for it. Trump woke up one morning, he starts shooting off texts or tweets or whatever he's doing about tariffs, right? That's a problem. So that's our relationship with international markets. And some of them don't play fair, so he's giving it back to them. Sometimes I think he's a negotiator with a baseball bat, and that's just how he deals with people when he's not getting his way. It doesn't matter if you don't like it or not. But you gotta try to understand, okay, what's going wrong? Because we thought international might actually be a better place right now. It's not, because we're hurting them on the trade scene, and we get hurt to a lesser extent. And he knows that.
Right.
So I liken it to two teenage boys driving together in fast cars, hoping the other one swerves first, right? I'm not real nervous about it because the election's still a ways away. I think if we're having this conversation at the beginning of November, then I'm more nervous. Because that means he didn't take his foot off the brake and let things kind of go. I think what you'll see over time is you'll see the tariff conversation change. I'll give you a good example. How much milk does Canada import from the US? None. Canada protects its dairy farmers by preventing US milk from coming in. Okay? I think that changes. I think that Trump isn't gonna put up with that. He's gonna force them to take some milk. Again, please, I'm not condoning that behavior or blessing or doing any of that stuff. It doesn't matter. It's just a tool. The idea is, okay, if he does something, how's that gonna affect my money? So I think if he takes his foot off the tariff conversation, these international funds start to do better, maybe not great, but they'll start to do better. If you're Mexico right now, and you've got Trump saying, hey, look, all of your steel products are coming in the country, I'm gonna charge extra for it. That hurts the American consumer because we're paying extra for it, which means we're more likely to buy American stuff, right? If you're the Mexican president, what are you thinking? Donald, we gotta talk. You're gonna destroy our aluminum and steel industry. What's his response?
Sure, do what I want.
I would love to help you. You're an extra neighbor, I don't want you to fail. Let's talk about a wall. I think that's how the conversation goes. So again, I'm not arguing that that's the right way to do that, but I think that's how he deals with it. I think that melts away. I think they don't want the steel industry to get trashed down there, so I think some of that goes away. Again, please understand, I'm not blessing that, but I think that helps our international. If we get past election season and that hasn't happened, then I'm not real interested in international. Then I'm back to saying most of our return come here. If people are turning and they're buying more American steel and aluminum, is that a good thing for us? Short term, I think it is, right? Anybody have any relatives up in the Iron Range? Gibeon, Tower? The mines are back open again. They're back doing some of the mining stuff. So for a short time, I think that helps us. The long run for tariffs, what happens? You and I pay more. Right? Even if we're buying it from the US companies, they'll raise their prices to be just under international prices. Tariff conversation doesn't usually work out in the long run. Right? Okay, so my safe stuff. What can I expect out of that? If the economy keeps going and interest rates keep going up, what's gonna happen here? It's gonna have trouble. Yep, and it's teeter-totter, right? Interest rates have been really low. What'd you pay for your mortgage? 3.2 for a mortgage. I bought my first house in the late 80s, it was 10 and a quarter for interest rates. That's pretty scary for buying a house, right? So interest rates have been really low. Bond prices have been really high. If I raise interest rates, what happens to bond prices? Yep. So if interest rates keep going up, what's gonna happen here? You're gonna continue to struggle. You're gonna continue to see these minor negatives. That's all I want you to take away. The second thing I want you to take away is I want you to go home and I want you to look at your personal debt. If it's variable, what am I begging you to do? Yeah, pay it down. A lot of us maybe can't pay it off right away. Pay it down. If you're trying to figure out which debt should I get rid of first, find the ones that are going up with interest rates. Those are the ones that are gonna hurt you because they're not gonna go down in the near future. They're gonna go higher. Okay, if I'm looking at large growth, large value, large blend, if I'm looking at this part right here, it's all US. The world's not, but it has US in it, and international's not. The rest of this block right here is US. What's happening here? How's the performance of number 8?
Very
Really
good.
very good.
So we're partially through the year and you've got 15%. If you've owned it for 1 year, how much are you doing?
28, you're doing
31.
27?
27.59. How about number 12? Small companies. If you're ticked off that you missed Microsoft, number 12 is trying to find Microsoft when Bill Gates had long hair. Right? How are they doing over the 1 year?
30%.
That's not normal.
30, 20.
You got really good options. We've backed off some of the expenses. But if I'm down in number 12, where's my risk? It's gotten high again. It's climbed up on me, right? I'm still all US, but I'm in those startup companies. Some of them don't make it. Okay, most of you are doing the goal manager options. Can you grab this for me? The goal manager options allow you to pick a risk model for yourself, and then we do the rest, right? We're still picking all the same mutual funds that you have to choose in the other, if you're doing it yourself, out of the lineup. So you've got this list of funds that you can pick your own, or I can pick one of 3. The conservative model, by the way, you can find these on this page. So I can pick the conservative model, the moderate model, or the aggressive model. If I'm a year from retirement, which one of these should I probably be?
Conservative.
Conservative, why? It's a great answer.
You don't wanna be so risky.
I don't wanna take the risk, I can't fall behind, I can't lose 40% of my money, I don't have the time to recover. What if I'm 25 years old, my first career, I really like it here, you people are awesome.
Aggressive.
Aggressive, how come?
Because I still have time.
Oh my gosh,
Lots of time.
not only do I have time to recover from something going wrong, but I got time to let some of those really good years help get me forward in plan A, right? So if I'm mid-career, I'm in my late 30s, 40s, 50s, where am I probably? Moderate, right? And you still have a fair amount of risk. Now, I've got the conservative up here, I just wanna point out something. So the conservative has 4% in the growth fund. If you're looking at this, you guys don't have to follow along, but for those of you that are interested, the growth fund is number 8. Okay, so even the safest option has some of your money in things that we think will grow. What if I'm in the aggressive? What do you think happens at MFS? I go up to 18% if I'm in the aggressive. So you get the same investments, but we just increase the ones that are kind of at the bottom, the ones that are trying to grow. Does that make sense? So the good news is, if you pick one of these portfolios, we'll do all the investing for you and we'll rebalance it once a quarter. Does that sound good? Most of you are doing it. Okay. So this young lady here started at MDM when you were how old? You did? She started when she was 22. She's now 25. That close?
Okay.
I started at Merrill 20 years ago. So if I picked one of these models, and I never came back and changed anything, we've rebalanced this every quarter, right? So let's say I picked the aggressive. 20 years have flown by. Which one am I still in?
Huh?
Which one am I still in?
Aggressive.
I'm still in the aggressive. I haven't gone back and changed anything.
He said if you were 25. 22 and 25.
I'm still in the aggressive, right?
Aggressive.
20 years fly by and I don't make any changes. What am I still in? The
Aggressive.
So should I be in the aggressive?
Probably not.
Probably not, right? I love this tool, and most of your company uses it. You don't have to I don't have to sit here and try to understand which one of these I should pick, how many of them should I have, where should I put the money? That's frustrating if you don't do that for a living, right? So we generated these so that you could pick one thing and be done. But what's making us increasingly nervous is 10 years fly by and you don't change it. Makes you normal, right? Some of us don't open the statement. So here's where we're going.
So if I have something in aggressive now at 40, and I started when I was 20, so it went through up and down, you guys will move it, right? You guys will move.
We won't move it.
Well, if I had the goal.
We would not move it from aggressive to moderate.
Okay, but it will fluctuate.
They'll
until I
rebalance
go in
it,
and
but
move
they
it,
won't.
like balance it.
They won't move it.
Okay.
Here's what we're introducing. You're going to have the ability to pick a retirement year,
Gotcha.
right? So if I invest in if the 2025 is the year that I'd like to retire, if I choose this year, or the 2035, or the 2055, if I choose that year, the closer I get to that year, what's happening with your mix, do you think?
Get less conservative, more conservative.
More and more conservative, less and less risky, right? So if I stay on this side, I'm gonna stay at constant speed. If I pick one of these, as I get closer to my retirement date, it gets safer and safer and safer.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
We're doing one extra thing that's not happening today. Today, we're rebalancing it back to where you were original risk-wise. Tomorrow, if you choose one of these, we'll actually keep rebalancing it, and we'll get safer as you get closer to your own retirement.
Got it, that makes sense. I mean, that's good.
What did these two things cost me, Rick? How much extra money do I pay?
Nothing.
Nothing. Don't pay any extra money. There's no extra money for this. It's an effort to try to get the plan to perform even better. Try to help you do a better job investing. That's it.
Cool.
Okay? Let me end with, how is that working out? Sorry for jumping around here. Can everybody see that? You don't have this handout. Can you see that? Last year, how much money did the plan have? This is all the plan, all of your money. How much is that number? It's a big number. Close. 2,534,000. So that is how much money the plan started out with. The net amount of money that you added, you guys actually added more, but then as you have people retire, as they quit, and they take their money out, some of the money leaves. Last year, you added a net 148,297. You guys used the plan. Phenomenal. Some of you guys have a great program going. You picked up interest and dividends of $115,980. In 1 year, $115,000 came into the plan just in interest and dividends, right?
Wow.
This isn't growth. That's your hard-earned money that you're putting in for your paychecks. That's growth. 115,000 last year. What's that number?
261.
261 grand. The plan grew, your investments went up in value 261,000. Last year was one of the best years the plan has ever had. If you look across there, it was the #1 growth year. The only one that came close was back in 2013. We went up 159,000. It was a phenomenal year last year. You look at so here's my second homework piece for you. If you haven't looked at your statement or gone online, I think you should. Some of you have had huge growth, right? And part of it is because you've been willing to put your money in, but these two things have worked out really well, right? So, plan's had great growth. This year, 2018, it's been a little tougher year. The plan's up 3.53%. We picked up 52,916 interest and dividends, 64,000 in growth. Every quarter I sit down with Shell and Diane, or every 6 months, I'm sorry, and we go over this. This is one of the slides that we go through to see how's the plan doing. They're laser focused on wanting you to get to plan A, have enough money to retire, but then stay here and work forever, don't retire. Just kidding, I don't say that. Okay. One of the main reasons we got together today was to talk about the transition. So some of the funds are changing to new funds, some of them are staying the same, but they're all getting cheaper, right? The second thing that we're adding, if you remember back to that goal manager, you are going to have the ability to pick a date, a year. And that year just needs to be close to when you want to retire. And then we'll take care of one extra piece of work, if you will, and make it safer as you get further closer to retirement. So we went through the timing of that. When does that date, when does that start? Close the business on the 30th. When do I get control back?
September 4th.
Yep, that sounds like a little bit longer time, but I have to remember, I got Saturday and Sunday in there, because I'm really out of the plan for probably 2 days, 2 business days. And it's really
And
neat.
Monday is a holiday, so that
Is
doesn't
it?
count
Yeah.
either.
It's Labor Day.
Labor Day, so you're really out of the plan for 1 day.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't catch that. Yeah, so that's even better. What questions do you have? First piece of homework I asked you to do?
Check your statement.
Yes, please, second, check your beneficiary, right? Primary and contingent. Second, I'd like you to look at the statement. I think some of you will be pleasantly surprised. Third, as a personal request of mine, I think everybody has to dress up next time. I got Spider-Man and tacos sitting in the back. I can almost not concentrate. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm sorry I went just a little bit long.
Thank you.
Increase of $4,000.